Hey everyone, I just want to show you a quick update on the Devonian Lithological Database app for the Mac. Right now it only exists on iOS platform, and now we have one for the Mac. I have to admit, part of this is for me so I can start thinking about the next generation of the database. But I figured this might be a good tool for other users as well, and hopefully this will be out in the next few weeks. So this is it. This is largely the same as the iOS version. You have a map here that's actually backed by Apple's Map Kit. So it's the same thing as Apple Maps. So it's a nice little app or mapping tool that you can use pretty easily from Apple. And it's very handy. And on top of that, I'm layering on the Devonian dataset that I have. The dataset eventually will be coming into a new design. I'm going to start working on that hopefully in the next few weeks, just to improve how it works, making some of the fields a little bit more understandable to other people, and just to collect newer and better information, since there's just so much out there available today. So just to give you a quick overview here, what you're seeing, of course, these little points are the locations of specific geological data. Now, there's a few things I'm going to change. For example, I'm going to be adding in unconformities, for example. But each little dot you see on the screen has some geological data on the back end. And these will change depending on the time that we're using. So on the left here, we see our timescale. In the iOS version that's on the bottom of the screen, this is now vertically oriented, since we have the screen real estate for it on the side. So we can just slide it and change the time, and wherever it's highlighted is the time that we're going to be using. So let's look at Middle Devonian, and you can see that it pretty quickly updates the data points. We can switch again to the Lower Devonian, and we see a whole different set of rocks. Now, each symbol, of course, represents a different kind of rock. The D's here are dolomites, the G's are gypsum, L's are limestone, and the greens are shales and sandstones. Now, these color schemes is based on a USGS color scheme. I used to use, in the iOS version still has it, standard rock symbols, but I discovered that I find it very hard to read on the map background. So I decided against using that at this point, to have something a little bit more stand out, a little bit more pop so you can see it. Now, each of these individual localities, interestingly enough, are not necessarily one particular station or well or a measured section. There can be multiple ones. For example, what we're seeing here is a cluster data set. If we get closer, you'll see more points added on. You see a little bit more detail. So there's a lot more points here than would be easy to see out here. So I now use a clustering system that gets rid of a lot of that spatial confusion. Now, if we want to pursue a particular locality here, we can just simply click on it, and we'll find that this particular D represents at least two localities. So here's one Sabine 9 and this number 289. So if we look at these two particular localities, you'll find that they're actually slightly different in position. So if you look at this line here, this is a mini map to show you where the site is in a little bit more detail. If we switch it from one to the other, you'll see that the position changed to the other side of that line. So they are different locations, even though they're very close together. And then we can look at what units are present. So in the site 1270 here, we have Middle and Upper Devonian, Duperow, Hatfield, Davison, Harrison, and Dawson Bay. And we can click on any one of these to get more information. So here's the Duperow. See some bookkeeping stuff, what kind of rocks are there. So there's evidence of limestone, gypsum, or dolomite and gypsum. And here's the original source. If you click on this button, it will take you to Safari or whatever your default browser is, and probably take you to Google Scholar. Google Scholar can find these things pretty easily, and they turn out to be really helpful if you're looking for more current information, because even some of these data are fairly old, but a lot of people cite these papers, and those papers then can be interesting for newer and more interesting data. And we can switch over to Sabine, and that brings up another interesting side effect, is that some of these wells aren't complete information all the way through the Devonian column. So, for example, Sabine 9 only goes through, or at least the data set here, it only goes to the upper Devonian, whereas this other site gets down to the middle Devonian. When I mentioned unconformities, I have no way of knowing, for example, if this is just a lack of data or because there's unconformity there. So that's one of the reasons why I want to add unconformities. The other thing that has to be added is that this app makes an attempt to put these in the proper order based on their age. When I originally collected them, I wasn't really interested in the proper order. I was just interested in the rock types and the age, so I didn't put them a way to get the proper order out of it. So that's something that has to be added into the newer versions of the database. Now, it's possible to do some searches. For one, if you want to look for a particular rock type, if I want to find all the sandstones, we can narrow it down. Now, as you can see, there's other kinds of rocks showing up. It just means that the sandstone isn't the most dominant rock in that location. So if we click on this site, we'll see that we have some unknown units. It's a mix of conglomerates and sandstone. Or if we want to go down here, we have 10 localities there. Again, that's a unit that's a mix of sandstone, shale, and red beds. Now, if we turn this feature off, by the way, this will also show you all the symbology that I'm using. If we turn that off, we can also search by name. So I want to look for the Fort Simpson Formation, which I happen to know is in Canada. And here they are. I can click on one of these and get more information about the Fort Simpson. Now, one of the interesting things about this is that if you search for formation name, you may not actually see it in this box. This is showing you the dominant formation. Sometimes the formations were grouped together by the author. And that is the way the database is set up. You may only see one of the unit names in this list, but it still will find it. For example, if you search for the bird bear up here, you see all these locations for the bird bear formation. But some of these locations you won't actually see that name. Let's see if this is one of them here. Nope, this one we have it. Remember, it's somewhere. This is an example of that. The bird bear formation doesn't show up. It's often grouped together with Three Forks. And because there is a connection to bird bear, you may not necessarily see it in the search. That's something else that needs to be improved over the long run on the database. So one other thing you can do here is you can change the map in the background. We can switch it to a more detailed viewpoint. And sometimes that leaves some little bit of insight of why those particular sites are there. These aren't good examples of that, but over here you could probably trace the Devonian units on the map just because we have measured sections in different areas along this part of these mountain ranges here. So anyway, this is the current status of the app. If you have any questions, like to know more information about it, if you have any suggestions on how to change things, please contact me and I'll get back to you.